Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here once again with the Money Trekker podcast. And this is one of our expert episodes. And I'm bringing Lindsey Sharpe, who's on the BKA Wealth team on. Lindsey is actually what's called a Cdfa, or a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. So you're going to learn a little bit about what that means, how she works with clients, and really learn a little bit about if you're considering a divorce. Hopefully you're not. But if you are considering one, some of the things you need to think about before you go and file. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is going to be part of a three-part series that we do. This one is really kind of what you need to do beforehand. The second one will focus on the team that you need to assemble and how you would work together with that team. And then the last episode will be one where we focus on what happens after the divorce and how do you kind of go on with the rest of your life at that point. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody, it's Jeff here with the Money Trekker podcast. And today is one of our expert episodes. And I've got Lindsey Sharpe from BKA Wealth Consulting on. Lindsey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jeff?
Fantastic. I'm glad you're on the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about an uncomfortable subject for some people, and that's divorce today. But talk a little bit about your expertise in that area. So why don't you tell us a little bit first off about, for those that don't know you, a little bit about your background.
Okay. So I'm a financial advisor, and I also work with Jeff at BKA Wealth Consulting. I've been doing advising in the financial world for about 6 years, and in total about 14 years in the industry. So climbing up there in years, but I love doing it because I get to help people. And that is also why this last year, I got certified to be a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, CDFA for short. And that is my education on being able to help people through the divorce process.
So can you kind of talk a little bit about what it takes to become a CDFA?
Sure. It's multiple classes. I've always had an interest in helping people through this tough time because it is very hard for each individual. It's just so emotional that I wanted to be a rock for those people that are going through this time. And I wanted to learn about each step and how best I could analyze their financial situation in order to make sure that not only in the short term is it going to be the best for them, but also the long term, looking into retirement and further on. And so it is multiple classes, and it is you take one big final test, and that's how you get the first CDFA title, and then you have to keep it up each year. You'll have to renew it, and you have to do 30 CEs. Those are just educational units that you have to go in. You have to keep updated. You have to keep updated with all the new information.
Absolutely. So what's the difference between just doing like regular financial planning and what you do as a CDFA?
Well, they are very similar in ways. I would say looking at individuals' whole financial plan, like what do they have going on? What are their assets? What are their liabilities? That's what you have to do first. You also have to look at their budget. How much are they spending? How much are they making? So all of this is the same as financial planning. So it really goes hand in hand. The difference is looking at how you're going to split the assets. What are you going to ask for in the divorce? And with what you're going to get in the divorce, is it going to make sure that you keep the lifestyle that you desire? So it just kind of takes the financial planning to another level so that you can go through this divorce knowing that on the other side of it, you'll be okay.
Yeah. So, when you're going through that process with them, what's kind of the step-by-step process that you go through with them?
First, sitting down and just getting to know them and the situation. And a lot of times they'll come to me either before they have filed or we'll be meeting during the divorce. So it depends on when it is in the whole divorce. But normally we'll go through their assets and also their budget. I have some documents that they'll fill out and we can kind of look through that and see what are they spending. So are they spending $500 on a t-shirt or nails every other week? Or if there's anything that I could say, this might not stay the same after the divorce, we can have that conversation. So it's really a get to know each other, get to know what your lifestyle is like before the divorce, and then what are your expectations going forward of what do you think life's going to be like after the divorce? And even during the divorce, because if you have children, it's something to talk about. What are you going to do? How are you going to share custody of the kids? And what are your wishes there? So it's a lot of communication in the beginning, a lot of finding documents. So we have to find the assets. So you'll know if you have bank accounts. Hopefully you'll have a statement also that you can bring in and show. It's just really gathering all that information together. That helps the lawyer as well. If you're working with a lawyer to take a look at it, it saves you a lot of money or them a lot of money when they sit down with me, because lawyers are going to charge you about $250 an hour. And I am a lot less than that. So that way we get everything organized. I get a good perspective of what they want out of the relationship, the professional relationship, and we can create that plan for them.
Yeah. And that CDFA process or the divorce process, you kind of have to keep that separate from any other financial planning and investing later on, correct?
Correct. Yes. So I do investment planning as well. So yes, I have to keep that separate. So while I'm working with a client on building up a plan for their divorce, we put the wealth management either on hold, or we also have other financial advisors that can help you through that process to make sure that everything is taken care of there.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of as you're going through this process, let's say, okay, we're building a budget. Are you literally stepping into that budget and saying, okay, well, let's look at how much money you potentially would get out of the case, and all right, now I need to you need to adjust your life? Or are you having those conversations with them that, okay, well, you're not going to get enough out and you're going to have to go back to work?
Well, all of those questions, yes to all of those questions is what I'm trying to say. So it is a look at what they could be receiving. What are the taxes going to be on what they're receiving? Are they going to have to wait till they retire to receive these assets, or are they going to have a fee? So it's really just seeing what the whole picture is. And then I can say, well, this is the best route for us to take at this moment. So let's say, like you said, maybe their lifestyle, they spend a lot more money than they should. I have to have that conversation with them about that and just say, I know your husband or wife made $500,000 and you stayed home with the kids. Well, you might get some money each month. We don't know how much that's going to be, but it's not going to be like you can spend whatever amount you want. So it's getting them, giving them power over their finances and the knowledge of what is this really going to look like on the other side, so that they're not surprised.
Exactly. And then of course, trying to figure out, okay, what assets and liabilities are going to walk out of that, the case with, is there some, I guess some guidelines when it comes to, do people typically split all the assets and liabilities in the state of Texas, or is it, one of them, that's a negotiable thing, I guess is the best way to put it.
again, it kind of just depends on the situation. Texas is a community property state. So that's where we're located. And so it's going to be equitable. So it's going to not necessarily be 50-50, but they're trying to make it as easy or as equal as they can on both sides, right? So let's just say they have $100,000 in debt, and maybe one of them just accumulated all of that debt. They will probably split that in half, or they'll take some of the cash and pay off some of that as well, because it is technically joint debt in the state of Texas. So a lot of that is, how can we use the cash or money in general to make sure that they're both okay. But yeah, let's say one has a lot of retirement assets and the other one has none. Well, then that's pretty easy. You're going to split that down the middle, and then both will have retirement assets. So some are very, very complicated, where you can talk about pension plans. That's very complicated. Stock options, even travel miles. So, I mean, you can split all of those, and you have to really be with someone who can think through all of those different aspects and see if there's any kind of hidden value in something that you could come to negotiations with and say, well, you have this pension, but I really want the house, and they're about the same. And so you can figure out, is this going to be more beneficial to keep the house, or should I take half the pension?
Yeah.
We'll work through those different scenarios.
Well, and that's the other part. Well, I want to stay in the house. Well, can you afford to stay in the house? Maybe not. I know from a financial planning perspective, a lot of times you have to have that hard conversation at the backside that I realize that you negotiated for the house, but you didn't negotiate for any of the cash. So now you're going to have to sell the house just to be able to survive,
Yes. Is it called house poor? Is that correct?
Yeah, house poor.
House
sure.
poor. You don't want to be house poor. You don't want to have a house and nothing to support you and your children, or just you by yourself. You have to have money to live. And people forget that. They think, well, I've had my memories here, and they get wrapped up in what it means and it feels to them. And sometimes it's important to have someone else come in and take a look at that someone that's unbiased, and say, well, it's not the best for you because XYZ, and then just show you with numbers the difference. So if you did this, here's plan A, or here's plan B, like which one do you see would be a better result? And then it's not an emotional it's decision at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly it's always emotional in a divorce situation. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen even amicable divorces. You wouldn't get divorced if you liked each other. In most cases.
Exactly right. That's right.
I think my favorite family lawyer or divorce attorney that I'd ever worked with, she's funny. One time we were talking, and there was a couple that was fighting over a couch. And the couch was probably worth $400. And finally, she goes, after a week of them back and forth fighting over this couch, she finally said, guys, you're paying me $250 an hour. If you keep fighting over this, I'm literally going to come over to your house with a chainsaw and cut it in half so that you'll stop fighting over this.
I know. And so they'll spend $5,000 on this couch just because they don't want to let it go. And
I want to hurt you because, I don't like you anymore and all that. And so, it's emotionally charged, and it just sucks. And it's nice having somebody that can kind of be that rational person to say, okay, well, let's be real about this stuff.
Yes, I'm usually a glass half full kind of person. So I'm very positive, and I can pretty much find the positive in anything. So the good thing about it is that you both are getting a fresh start, and it's just you get one chance at this. So it's a matter of making sure that you do it in the best way that's going to put you in the right position for the rest of your life. And you can't mess up. You only do have that one chance. So really make sure that you do take care of yourself and go to the right people that can watch your back and help you through this emotional time.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. Okay, so we're still talking about the front end side of the process before you file. Where do you, let's say a client comes to you and you kind of start this process, where do you engage the attorney at that point?
What I like to do is help them, if they come to me first, let's just say, I would like to help them gather the information, make the monthly budget, also make a list of assets, but also liabilities. So maybe that's credit card debt, student loans, mortgage, cars. Having a list of all of those and thinking through those and making sure they're complete. I want to make sure that I help them do that and also help them organize the documents so that they can go to the lawyer and say, here it is, let's talk about it, instead of let's gather all of that and spend 5 hours at $250 an hour just gathering all of that. So you can save a lot of money if you do your due diligence in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I like to guide them through that.
Well, and I would think too, it helps them kind of get their head in the game, because they're probably not, their head's probably not in the game at that point. So it allows them to kind of feel like they have some control over their life a little bit before it gets completely out of control.
Yes, it's a good time to search for the financials. If you haven't been involved with the bills, how much is water in the house, and how much are you paying for the mortgage? And writing all of that out will really help you figure out what is going to stay the same after the divorce and what is going to change. And that's going to help you figure out how much money you're going to need and income to keep the lifestyle up that you want to have.
Yeah. Well, and I would assume too, you're also looking at the kids, I mean, there's the visitation side of things, but you're also looking at the education piece and everything else as well, right?
Exactly. Yes. Because if you can get your kids' college set up, or at least figure out what you're going to do for their college education, or even their private school education right now, all of that is very important to talk out. Also making a wish list before you go into the lawyer's office. And by wish list, I mean, what do you wish that you could have? Like, you could choose anything. Like, I want the house. That is one thing that it's non-negotiable. I'm going to have the house. And if that's like number one on your list, then the lawyer knows going in, okay, well, if this is your number one, then what is it that you're willing to give up? So then you can have another list that's, okay, I don't care about the pension plan. I don't care. Okay, well, that's fine, but it's explaining the differences too of giving this up for this. And there are going to be some exchanges there, and talking those out and realizing you can't have it all. You're going to have to give up some as well. So that's what we do before we go to the lawyer.
But I'm assuming too, there's also, they may have their wish list of things, but you have to be that rational one to say, okay, I know you don't care about the pension, but this is something, this has X value that you need to be aware of. So you're willing to trade for the dog. You're willing to trade, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the pension.
Not a good choice.
Not bad,
right,
bad
exactly.
Choice. Yeah, bad choice. I know you love the dog, but
yeah, exactly. Looking at the honesty in that, and like, okay, yeah, well, that's going to help you retire. That's a really good thing to have. And
but you also, it might have been 20 or 30 years that you were with that person, and you've accrued that money as y'all were, married, and it's like, okay, you deserve a portion of that, whether or not you were the person working at that company or not.
Well, and that's a good point, because I did meet with a client who came in, and she had a young son, and she came in and was like, I really just want this to go away. I want to get done with it as quickly as possible. I don't care what I get. And I said, okay, I understand that. And she's like, but I don't want to fight with him. I said, that's fine. But remember, like, you're not only doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your son as well, because she didn't think they had very much money. She thought it was going to be very easy. But then whenever we looked over her assets, or her husband's assets, as she put it, she would be receiving quite a lot of money, and it would be setting up her son and herself for the next years to come. So it's not only about you and trying to get through it. You got to think about the people that you're taking care of, and how is this outcome going to be best for both of you?
Yeah, well, and like I said, I mean, that's the advantage of hiring a professional to come in and help with that type of stuff. Okay, well, I think that gives us a really good, explanation of the beginnings of the process. So what we'll do on the next show is we'll focus on what that kind of the divorce process looks like after you filed, and who the team is that you bring in and everything else.
Yes.
So
I have some really good tips as well, just to keep organized during the divorce, because your brain is going to go 100 miles an hour. So I do have some tips to bring as well in the next podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for this today. It was fantastic. Great information. Like I said, folks, we hope you don't ever have to go through this process, but if you do, I think following some of these basic steps is certainly important. And we'll go through this in the next couple podcasts with Lindsey to review, all right, what happens in the middle of it all, what happens afterwards as you move on to the rest of your life. So Lindsey, thank you for being on today.
Thank you, Jeff.
I appreciate you. And folks, of course, we do these throughout the week. We do 3 shows a week, one interview with an entrepreneur, one an interview with an expert, and then our Financial Fridays every Friday. So if you want to make sure you get all of these, whatever channel you're watching this on right now, whether it's YouTube, Rumble, Vimeo, any of the podcast channels, make sure you hit that little subscribe button, because if you don't subscribe, you don't know when these shows come out. So thanks a lot for being on. We look forward to seeing you back here the next time.